Yeah, thanks again for the introduction, Lena. And as Lena said, yeah, I'm a registered psychologist. I work in private practice in Sydney and online with Wombat. And I'm really excited to chat with you all today and hopefully provide a new insight to burnout. And I'll be going through, I guess, introducing the concept of burnout, how and why it can affect healthcare workers, and starting to go through some strategies to prevent burnout. So we can understand burnout as a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that's caused by excessive periods of prolonged stress. And it's common amongst health workers, of course, because health workers are exposed, to excessive periods of prolonged stress. And it's caused due to a high frequency of chronic job stresses that haven't been successfully managed. And it is different. We understand burnout different to acute or a normal level of stress that's experienced within the workplace. But it isn't a medical condition or a psychological disorder per se. However, if it's left unaddressed, it can develop into these sort of outcomes. And many healthcare workers will experience, work stress and job stress and don't end up burning out. But no one will burn out without experiencing job stress. So yeah, prolonged stress leads to burnout. Today, I'll introduce some concepts that will help to identify and bring awareness to those differences and help us start to, I guess, manage the different stages of burnout there. And so I'm going to introduce Christina Maslach, who's a burnout research pioneer. She's a social psychologist and professor. And her concept of burnout is the 3 dimensions of burnout, including firstly, an overwhelming exhaustion, feelings of cynicism and depersonalization, and lastly, a sense of inefficacy, which can lead to a lack of personal accomplishment. So let's get into each of these dimensions in a little bit more detail. The first dimension of exhaustion. This dimension's marked by profound physical, cognitive, and emotional fatigue. It can be, feelings of being emotionally overextended and exhausted by work. And there's so many factors that contribute to this symptom, especially in, the healthcare space. It can be, being on call 24/7 and not having those boundaries. It can be due to the culture of the organisation that you're within. It can be due to the intense time pressures that you face, excessive workloads, understaffing, so many different factors. And exhaustion starts to cause us problems because it leads to difficulty concentrating. Simple tasks that previously were easy can start to feel arduous. You might feel like you're having to drag yourself into work, or you're not feeling rested or restored by sleep in the way that you should be. So if we go into the next dimension of depersonalization, so depersonalization or cynicism or detachment from the job can occur in burnout, and it's often seen in burnout. And that feeling can be towards, the recipients of your care, of your services, or of your instructions. And this occurs from a overload of work, a high conflict environment. Can be to do with a lack of participation in decision-making, so a low sense of autonomy, feelings of unfairness in the workplace. And at first, cynicism develops as a form of self-protection against the exhaustion from burnout. So it's sort of that feeling of, being angry at the source of exhaustion. It could be, thoughts like, I don't even want to be here. I don't want to be part of this. I didn't sign up to feel this way. So sort of those thoughts that could be directed directly at, the recipients of your care, or it could be more towards the system, but just that real overall feeling of cynicism. And obviously this can quite quickly become harmful. If an individual, you might feel dehumanized, you might feel completely disconnected from the job and your responsibilities, and even start to feel quite callous. So finally, we've got feelings of inefficacy. So feeling a lack of achievement or a lack of personal accomplishment, and seeing your productivity start to diminish. And this can be due to a lack of resources or a lack of support to do your job well or to face challenging situations in the workplace. That could look like not having adequate time or information or resources to do the work that you need to do successfully. It could be not having clear expectations around your tasks or your job role, or what that requires, and having a lack of autonomy can contribute to that as well. And so that can bring about feelings of professional inadequacy, feeling like you can't get the job done that you need to, feeling like your skills are regressing, and even being uncertain about the quality of your work. So seeing a lot of self-doubt and those sorts of feelings coming out of this domain here. So as mentioned earlier, burnout is more than just work stress or expected work stress, but it is always caused by stress. And it's not a mental disorder, but can result in a mental disorder if left unaddressed. So we're going to briefly take you through the 5 stages of burnout to understand how these symptoms can manifest and how they can develop from that healthy stress into burnout and beyond. So we'll start at stage 1 is the honeymoon phase. So this could be, you've taken on a new role or a new promotion, changed workplaces. So a start of a new adventure where the stress might feel exciting. You're excited about the change and the new learnings. You might feel committed. You might have a strong sense of meaning and purpose in what you're doing. And this phase, I guess, poses risks to burnout, risks of overcommitting or engaging in a task that's not sustainable, being driven by unrealistic expectations from yourself or from others, wanting to please or impress people in these new environments. But at this phase, there's lots that we can do to prevent further development here. So that's stage 1. We'll move into stage 2, which is fuel shortage, or where we start to see the onset of stress. So this stage begins with an awareness of some days being more difficult or more challenging than other days. You might start to notice feelings of being less optimistic as the reality of the situation sets in. So as you've started to adjust potentially to that new role. Common symptoms here can include decreased social interaction, lower productivity, anxiety, fatigue, changes in appetite, and those symptoms would be seen on the days that are more difficult than others. So not being seen every day or for extended periods of time, but showing up on those days that are more challenging. And so then if we move into stage 3, chronic symptoms of stress. So this is where the frequency of the stress starts to increase and you notice marked changes in your stress levels and drastic differences from the motivation that you once had and being motivated by these challenges that you're facing into experiencing stress as an automatic, frequent response and it occurring on a frequent basis. And so these symptoms would be seen more intensely than the symptoms in stage 2. And moving into stage 4 is crisis or burnout, right? So this is what your classic burnout would look like at this stage. And this is where symptoms do become quite critical. And unfortunately, it's usually not until this point that burnout is first truly noticed and taken seriously. And here is where you'd be seeing a high level of the symptoms or the presentation that are first described in Maslach's 3 dimensions of burnout that I highlighted earlier. So yeah, a lot of the cynicism and depersonalization, feelings of exhaustion at a quite a serious level. And then lastly, we go into stage 5, which is hitting the wall, and that is habitual burnout. So that's having experienced those symptoms of burnout for an extended period of time and those symptoms being so embedded in your life that you're likely to experience a significant physical or emotional problem as opposed to just occasionally experiencing that stress or burnout reaction. And so at this stage, chronic sadness or depression, mental exhaustion, low self-efficacy, and in worst case scenarios, suicidal ideation can be present. So yeah, just run through the 5 stages. And if obviously there's risk as you can see at any stage, and it is important to tackle burnout as early as possible. But you can see that If burnout's left unaddressed, or if it reaches the 5th stage, there can be serious consequences on your psychological and physical health. And these consequences can take from months to years to recover, depending on, the severity and the time spent in that burnt out state, maybe the stage of burnout that you got to. And yeah, those consequences are serious, and that can look like, the loss of empathy and efficiency that you might experience because of burnout can lead to increased medical errors, poor patient care, patient dissatisfaction, complaints. So it's a real quality and safety concern. And on a more personal level, the effects of burnout can seep into areas external from the workplace. And it's common to see problems like, relationship breakdowns, social conflict and withdrawal, alcoholism, substance dependence, chronic fatigue, illness, and major mental health problems, or suicidal ideation. And studies actually show that burnout and stress-related absenteeism cost the Australian economy an estimated $14 billion annually. So it's a huge impact at a micro and a macro level. Okay. So yeah, we're going to go more now into how to navigate, I guess, through those phases and navigate if you're noticing these symptoms of burnout. And I just wanted to start with, recognizing that burnout is not a sign of weakness, and it's not a lack of personal resilience. It is an occupational phenomenon. And quite often the causes of burnout, as some that we'd mentioned earlier, can be due to systemic problems in, healthcare industries and all industries that are outside of, one individual's control. But I do want to talk today on the dimensions of resilience and how we can all continue to prioritize these dimensions to foster our resilience and prevent or respond, to the early signs of burnout or just general stress by focusing on those factors that are within our control. So Professor Kari Cooper, an organizational and health psychologist, identified 4 key components to strengthening and promoting personal resilience. And as you can see on the slide there, they are social support, purposefulness, adaptability, and confidence. So social support is about building good relationships with others in the workplace and seeking support and help from them to overcome adverse situations, rather than trying to cope on your own. So to prevent burnout, you want to ensure that you know what that social support looks like, or you know how to develop that, and make sure that you're maintaining connection with others. And that can be your colleagues, it can be external mentors, it can be online support groups, it can be personal supports, it can be professional supports, psychologist, and also, I guess, understanding what level of social interaction does work for you or does fuel you. Extroverts need more social interaction, introverts need less, but still definitely need social support. And it is very easy to withdraw if you're feeling burnt out, but it is one of the biggest factors to overcoming and navigating through burnout. So it's a really important one. So the next one here is purposefulness. So having a clear sense of purpose, of your values, of your drive and your direction will really allow you to maintain that passion and that enjoyment from your work. And it'll give you a clear focus that helps you to push through and persist through setbacks. So not to say that you won't be affected by them, but just that direction to help guide you through them. And so it's a really important part of resilience and therefore an important part of burnout prevention. And to develop a plan that's going to help you prevent burnout, you want to look at doing some work on understanding what does drive you, and understanding that those factors that drive you, they can change over time, or you might lose them and need to become, realign with them. And you can do that by developing a plan using SMART goals, making sure they align with your personal values, and really using those goals and values to guide you like a compass through rough seas of stress. And it's something that can be done individually. It might be something that you're already aware of, or it can be done with personal supports, or definitely guidance from a psychologist would be appropriate as well. So the next one here, adaptability. So flexibility and adapting to changing situations that are beyond our control, essential to maintaining resilience. And adaptability is being able to understand your failures, reflecting on them, being open to new ideas, new situations, finding ways to complete difficult tasks rather than giving up. Learning to be adaptable might require you to look inward to tackle some unrealistic expectations or self-sabotaging personality traits that you might hold, like a fear of uncertainty or need to be perfect, or especially in healthcare, the belief that you have to be infinitely compassionate and have this, infinite store of compassion. So all of those, the examples that I mentioned, are these unrealistic expectations. So becoming more flexible and more adaptable can look like, whether it's personal work or work with a psychologist, to tackle and challenge some of those unrealistic expectations. It's also important to take time to figure out your self-care plan and plan for your self-care so that you can best support yourself through times of change, or when there are situations beyond your control, when there are intense periods of stress. And again, that's something that can be better understood with the support of a psychologist as well. So the next one here, the last one we've got, is confidence. So confidence is all about having feelings of competence, effectiveness in coping with stressful situations, and strong sense of self-esteem. So that can look like being willing to take risks and do the right thing that's in line with your values, despite there being opposition. It can look like admitting and learning from your mistakes, and it can also look like accepting praise. And yeah, building confidence can be a challenging one if it's not something that comes natural to you, or if you've had that confidence shaken. But it's an essential component to resilience, and therefore essential to burnout prevention. And to build feelings of confidence, there are some environmental factors that are important to recognize. So making sure that you're doing work that you're good at, that's meaningful to you, that's in line with some of those values and intentions that we talked about earlier. It can be by reflecting on your past challenges and your past successes, thinking about how you got through challenging situations, and how you obtained successes that you had, and drawing from those experiences to help increase your sense of confidence in the face of new challenges. It can also be having a look at how you view your mistakes, and doing some work to develop the ability to reframe potentially the way that you explain mistakes and setbacks to yourselves. And you want to be doing that from a more positive light, and that's going to increase confidence. And that, again, that's something that can be challenging to do, and is something that can be definitely done with a psychologist's support as well. But also with this, being able to set boundaries and communicate your limits around your areas of expertise or your areas of passion, and sticking to that. The hours that you're comfortable with, all of those sorts of things can help you feel more confident and competent, and therefore make you, draw on those stores in times of stress. So just to wrap things up today, I want you all to reflect on these following questions in light of what we've discussed, to consider how you are currently feeling or currently showing up within your role as a healthcare worker, and bring awareness to your own experience. So first of all, what are your own signs that indicate that you might be at risk of burnout, or you might be at some level or some stage of burnout? What thoughts do you notice when you're feeling burnt out, or when you're feeling that stress start to develop? What does burnout feel like for you in your body? Do you notice, you feel heavier in the face of exhaustion? How does feeling burnout affect your work? Does it prevent you from being as motivated? What does that look like for you? And what tools do you have to respond to these signs when they show up? Now, you may not have the answers to these questions right now, but write these questions down, take them away, have a think about them, and hopefully some of the information that we went through today will motivate you to put your well-being first, to take your risk of burnout seriously, especially in the face of all the incredible work that healthcare workers do every day, and definitely to start to develop a plan to ensure that you can be a sustainable healthcare worker. And for those people who may currently be experiencing burnout, you're not alone. It is nothing to be ashamed of. And I hope that today helped you understand your experience of burnout in a new or different light, and really validate the importance of getting support, because it is something that with support can definitely be worked through. And there's lots of support here. So you can reach out to myself or anyone at Wombat, chat with your doctor, your GP, or any other sort of available psychologist for further support. And so on that note, Wombat is starting a psychologist-led burnout recovery program in August. So if you are interested, scan the QR code in the slide here. And yeah, that's all from me today. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'll hand back over to Lena.